Unity consciousness and there is no them and how it works. Hi, my name is Leah Chantel. Welcome back to my channel, and today I am taking on a big topic, and it's about unity consciousness, or how there is no them. And it's a big lesson. It's something that we all need to learn, that deep down we're all human and we have the same human needs, and yet we do have differences. How do we reconcile these two different realities in our human lives? Because both are true. So some teachers will say, Leah, you shouldn't say that that's true. We shouldn't be looking at the differences. We have to look at how we're all the same. And I'm just going to give you an example. So when you believe everybody's the same, we're all the same, it's unity consciousness, and you're a woman, and you're feeling generous, and you really take that belief literally, and you go, I'm going to give my boyfriend flowers today. Well, how do you think that's going to go? So there you go. That's a very obvious example that we're not exactly all the same, and if we operate from that belief system, we can actually behave in quite a naive way, thinking that the flowers that I'm giving my boyfriend are going to be well received. Now, most people have a lot of common sense. They know not to do things like that, but occasionally women do go too far in their relationships with men and overgive, because sometimes they do have the naive belief that we're the same when we're actually not. And sometimes being generous is not always the wisest move, especially when women have their relationships with men. And that's because patriarchy still exists in our society. The male and female role, especially in the personal relationship, and particularly a straight woman and man relationship, those roles are still heavily imprinted. They are shifting and they are changing a little bit because we work now as women, but there's still this ingrained belief that we're still responsible for the household. And men don't really enjoy taking on those responsibilities usually. Sometimes they do. I'm not saying they never do. But yeah, it's a very complicated manner. And so if we naively go out in the world with the belief that we're all union, we're all one, and we treat each other the same, sometimes that does not go well. And something that may go well, say for example, you're in your local community and you make a joke among your people that you grew up with, and then you go into your workplace with a different group of people and you make the same joke, maybe it's not gonna go well, So how do we reconcile the fact that there is no them and yet have consideration for other people and understand that people are actually different and we could offend them with our behavior? Or maybe it's not necessarily offensive, but maybe our behavior can be not well received by the other party. How do we reconcile those belief systems? And I think we kind of have to learn different strategies for dealing with different groups of people, and it's a matter of reading and becoming very well educated. So women have these roles in our relationships with men, and we need to become educated on that and how to set boundaries, how to figure out what's appropriate for us to take on and what's not appropriate. We need to become educated in that area. When we go to work, we have to understand differences between groups of people and what not to say to not offend them, what counts as a microaggression. Now, if you're a white girl with all your white friends and you're listening to Cardi B and you do an impression of Cardi B in front of your very close white friends, you may not get in trouble in that group. But if you do it at work, you're definitely gonna get in trouble. You see what I mean? And so we have to learn how to be sensitive to different people's needs and understand them, and understand that we're not exactly the same. But at the same time, reconcile that belief with deep down, we are the same. Very deep in our spirit, we are the same. But in our day-to-day lives and learning how to behave and learning how to build relationships with others, we are not the same, and we can make mistakes that actually get us in trouble and can put us in danger. So one of the arguments where this belief comes from, that we are all the same, that there is no them, is it comes from one of my spiritual communities, and I'm glad that I learned it. It was a very deep, wonderful, beautiful life lesson, and it's very important to remember for our long-term spiritual development. Sometimes in learning the more relationship level life lessons, we forget that greater truth. And so learning the small relationship lessons keeps you safe. And let me explain that and unpack that a little bit. So if you believe in intuition or mediumship or something like that, sometimes people in those communities don't feel safe because there are people from other communities that commit microaggressions and that for that community, and then they feel unsafe, right? Microaggressions can happen for so many different communities. It can happen to African Americans, it can happen to Indigenous people, it can happen all over the place. And then when they happen, you don't feel safe. And people are like, well, if I come out and I talk about these spiritual beliefs publicly, let's say that you're white and you say, I'm going to come out publicly and say that I believe these beliefs. What's going to happen is other people are going to commit microaggressions against me, and then I'm not going to be safe. And then what if I get bullied at work or I get fired? And how do you reconcile being safe in that situation? And my answer to that, there is a very specific answer to that. There's nothing wrong with your beliefs, regardless if you're Christian or you believe those beliefs, or you're white and you decide to become a Muslim. It doesn't really matter. But the most important thing is how you treat people. If you treat people well in your workplace and in your family, and yet you have boundaries to kind of keep out their toxic behavior, regardless of whatever you believe, you're gonna be safe. Nobody's gonna come after you if you set boundaries and then, aside from that, treat people with a lot of love and respect. You're not gonna have any problems. And that's what keeps you safe in the world. And if you're the type of person who has a certain kind of belief, but you feel scared to step out in the world and share your message because you're not sure what kind of other people are going to see that necessarily, and if they're going to bully you or something, the key to fixing that is not hiding your beliefs. That's not what's going to help. What's going to help is if you actually learn about other people. That's why I read about racism. I learn about what different groups of people go through, because when you learn about these things and you learn about how to have healthy relationships with other people, basically you're creating those boundaries of safety for yourself. And then regardless of whatever you decide to put out there on the internet, you're going to be fine. That's the key to having public safety when you are sharing on the internet, is to understand people and understand relationships. And if you're not there yet and you don't understand those things very well yet, I think it's okay to admit that to yourself and say, I need some time to learn that. And when I learn that, then I'm going to feel more safe being out in the world and sharing what I believe in on the internet. That's totally okay. And I think that's the key to being safe. And it's also the key if you want to have a long-term romantic partnership. That's also very key, is to understand relationships and boundaries and when it's appropriate to give, when it's not appropriate to give. People believe in unconditional love, give everything all the time. And it's just, there are times when maybe you can be graceful and give that to another person, but you can't be bodhisattva all the time, especially women. That's not appropriate. We've had that role pinned onto us, and it's actually really damaged us women as a group. And we need to learn boundaries and learn when it's appropriate to give and when it's not appropriate to give, right? And that's how we build healthy relationships. That's how we're happy in long-term committed relationships. That's how we can become secure being a public figure and being influential, is by having good boundaries and learning about relationships. And then regardless of whatever you believe, if it's religion, if you're atheist, if you're spiritual, whatever it is, you're going to be safe. You're going to be fine. I hope that all made sense. I hope you're all having a great day. And I hope that wasn't too deep, but oh well, if it is too deep, I hope the right people hear it and appreciate it. And I hope you're all having a wonderful day. Take care.